I do respect and really grateful for your humility and for your openness. Okay? And just to kind of review what we've gone through, if we could go to the PowerPoint. Right? We started with from the basics of basics. We started with the definition of theology, and we said theology is basically, if we go to PowerPoint again, theology is basically what study of God. And when we say theology of something, what we mean is we're looking at the subject from the light and the purpose of God, right? Looking at the reality from the light and the purpose of God. Okay. I think you might have to just open the PowerPoint. Sorry for this technical difficulties. And then, do you remember, and then we looked at the family, and we said the family is the center or not the center? Trick question, right? Actually, it's not that trick question. You guys know it. It's not the center. Because family is not eternal. Only God is eternal. Our relationship with God is eternal. But once we decenter our family, then we can love our family well, appropriately. Same thing with children. The children is not the center of the family, right? And we decenter them. Actually, in the family is God and man and woman. That's the core of a family. Once we have that, once we don't desperately need our children, then we can love them appropriately. And then we looked at womanhood. And I know that also would be a very challenging study. But I think it's an eye-opener, right? Is a woman the glory of man? No, the woman is the glory of God. Because it's very clear in the creation story that God created man and woman in His image. And of course, Christ shows us that most clearly. And when we look at that, we kind of look at the methodology of how do we do theology well? You don't take the whole Bible and just lay it out and you follow everything that it says, verse by verse, period by period, because none of us do that. There's so many things and even contradictory points. So what do? You need a vantage point, right? You need a lens through which you can see. And we saw that the two most important lenses are creation and Christ. And so I hope this study is helping you beyond just thinking about family, but think about many things in life. Whenever you have any experiences, all right, put on your theological lenses. Look at it through creation and Christ. And then we can see a bit clearer what is God's purpose in those things of our lives. Okay? And today, then, we go to manhood, and we'll see one more time if it works. It starts in the... Okay, if you could try to make it work one more time. But before we do that, let us have time of silence. Okay? No instructions here, just for a minute. Be still and know that God is here. Luke chapter 2, from verse 41. Every year his parents went to Jerusalem for the feast of the Passover. When he was 12 years old, they went up to the feast according to the custom. After the feast was over, while his parents were returning home, the boy, Jesus, stayed behind in Jerusalem, but they were unaware of it. Thinking he was in the company, they traveled on for a day. Then they began looking for him among their relatives and friends. When they did not find him, they went back to Jerusalem to look for him. After 3 days, they found him in the temple courts, sitting among the teachers, listening to them and asking them questions. And everyone who heard him was amazed at his understanding and his answers. When his parents saw him, they were astonished. His mother said to him, "Son, why have you treated us like this? Your father and I have been anxiously searching for you." "Why were you searching for me?" he asked. "Didn't you know I had to be in my father's house?" But they did not understand what he was saying to them. Then he went down to Nazareth with them and was obedient to them. But his mother treasured all these things in her heart. And Jesus grew in wisdom and stature and in favor with God and men. This is the word of our Lord. Thanks be to God. When does a boy become a man? Because it is important to be a man. Because if you're a boy, you always grow up hearing, be a man. Right? Constantly from your parents, from your friends, from your teachers, be a man. You fall, you scrape your knees, you're about to cry, be a man. Slice your arms off, be a man. Put a hot sauce, right? Drink the whole bottle of hot sauce and be a man. And we do some dumb things to be a man, don't we? Right? And what I find strange is you never hear it the other way. You never hear, to ladies say, be a woman. Right? Do you hear that? Right? Why is that? How come it's never said to sisters, be a woman? Is it like we men, we're more dumb, and so we need reminding of who we are, right? The women, they know they're a woman, but the men, they don't know. So sometimes, occasionally, we'll say, be a man. Oh, yeah, thanks for reminding me that. Right? But being a man is actually more than just remembering who we are as far as our sex goes. But it's about an identity, isn't it? It's about manhood. Now, it is true that couched in that, language, be a man, there is definitely our cultural assumptions, sexism in there, right? It takes our cultural biases of what it means to be a man and woman, what the difference is, and it essentializes it. And this is what it means to be a man. So it could be, a man wears pants, but all women wear dresses, right? A man don't cry, but women are sensitive and they know when to cry. Men lead and women follow. It's true that it could essentialize what cultural bias is, but it is also true that there are definitely differences in the sexes, right? When God created man and woman. It isn't that differentiation, there's much commonality, but it's that differentiation that they reflect God. So they're different, man and woman is different. I mean, even biologically, it's embedded in us. We're different. We have common things like eyes and nose, but then our sexual organ is different. So even that, we have differences. Now, those differences are not drastic. They're gradual differences, right? In other words, it's not that men never cry, but maybe we expect men to cry less or cry a different way. Same thing with women, right? Men and women, these differences are more like gradual and tendencies, right? Men, when we get stressed, we tend not to talk about it, because when we talk about it, we get stressed more. Women, when they get stressed, what do? They talk about it, right? And again, this is not essential, but they're gradual differences, tendencies. Not every man or every woman has it. But those gradual differences makes a huge difference. Right? Think about the seasons. What's the difference between a summer and a winter? A summer that can kill you with the heat, or a winter where you could get hypothermia? It's just a gradual difference of the tilt of the earth. So there are differences. So the question is legit. What does it mean to be a man? When does a boy become a man? Our culture doesn't really help us out a lot, because our culture confuses us. It says in one area, it says constantly, be a man, and be a man. But then in this other area, they throw us a totally opposite contradictory language, which is basically saying, hey, don't grow up. Don't grow up. Right? The best life is to be big, but to always be a boy. You hear this constantly. You know this jingle, right? I don't want to grow up. I'm a Toys R Us. Okay, all those people who just sang that is my age. Okay, they're older, right? Right? Now, think about that. Yeah, it's just a jingle, and you remember the commercial that you saw? I mean, it's like this 40-year-old hairy man in the bathtub with the rubber ducky singing that song. Oh, it's disgusting, right? But we laugh at it, and as American culture, we can accept it because there's an assumption in our culture that it makes sense. In any other culture, you try to make that commercial, it doesn't work. Right? In our culture, we say, be a man, and then we say, but don't grow up. Be a boy, right? How do you win the game of life? It's the person who wins who has the most toys, right? Think about some of the heroes that are American cultural icons, right? Peter Pan. What does it teach? A person, a male who never has to grow up. Now, retain the childhood in the best light, it means keeping the innocence, and that's okay, keeping the purity of it. But in its worst light, it's saying it's okay to remain selfish. So again, like I said, a fourth grader scrapes his knees, right? We tell the boy, be a man. And then this adult, the parent, looks to the other parent and explains what just happened, saying, hey, boys will be boys. Right? That's what happens to boys. A 40-year-old man goes through a midlife crisis, buys a sports car. How do you explain that? Boys will be boys. See how confusing it is, right? And of course, the American icon of this is the playboy. Right? The quintessential American is the playboy. This is the best life a man can have, to be a playboy. And that's just more than just the pornographic industry. It's a marketing of a culture. Right? It's about you can grow up and you can still have lots of fun with unattached commitment. And in center of it all is Hugh Hefner, the owner, right, the one who started Playboy, and he lives in this big mansion, right, with lots of toys and with young ladies scantily clad who are like his granddaughter's age. And everybody, the American says, that is the quintessential American. And all day he walks around with what? With his robe, right? Pajamas, right? His gold gilded pajamas. And when you look at him, he does look like a boy. An old, sad, lonely, and lost boy. Hugh Hefner is what Peter Pan looks like when he hits 80s. Our culture, it confuses us. Be a man. How? Just be a big-bodied boy. That's life. When you think about every culture has a ritual in which a boy becomes a man, because it's very important for society that they're men. They're men in that society to help it grow, to help it thrive. Every culture has it. And in the American culture, we have our own thing too. When does a boy become a man? Oh, when he becomes of drinking age. Oh, when he gets drunk, you become a man. Or his first sexual encounter, yes, then you become a man. You see how manhood is tied to these boyish ideas. That when you can have fun, when you can have more fun, when you can do more things, when you can get more pleasure, then you become a man. When did Jesus become a man? Actually, this story is about Jesus becoming a man. Because when you read it very carefully, it starts off at verse 43. It says, the boy Jesus stayed, Padia. But after that, Jesus is never mentioned with the word boy. Verse 52, and Jesus grew in wisdom and stature. And the word stature there is not, social stature, but physical. And in favor with God and men. It's a little bit more of an elaboration, but basically what verse 52 is saying, Jesus became a man. So the question is, when and how does Jesus become a man? How does Jesus, a boy, become a man? 12 years old, he goes in, and it's a custom. In the Jewish ritual, this is what happens. When a boy becomes 12, he goes with his parents to Jerusalem, and one says this is the confirmation. This is when they officially become an adult, a man, when they become responsible because they can receive God's commandments. From age 12, the boy becomes a man when he receives, and from then on becomes responsible for God's commandments in his life. Very clear. The Jews still practice this, and they call this bar mitzvah. Bar means son, mitzvah means commandment. When the boy is responsible because he can understand, he's able to respond to God's commandment. Can we have the PowerPoint? Does it work? Maybe you can send it from there. Okay. Now, fascinating thing is this. Okay. So age 12, age 13, that's when they do it. But all these things, like, let's continue to go to the next slide. Let's get to the stages. Okay, psychological stages. It aligns the age 12 and 13. That aligns so well with all this different psychological mapping of human development. And We're going back to our Psychology 101 class, okay? Remember Piaget, who talks about how the intellectual development of human beings, from the baby, very concrete, sensory motor, concrete, and it's only when you look at it, right, at age 11 to adulthood, that's a formal operational. Basically, that the child can think abstractly. In other words, he doesn't think just as concretely, I gotta have enough candies just as my sister has. Same amount of candies, that's justice. He thinks abstractly, justice beyond just his life experiences. And so, this allows you to think about God too, because God, when you think about it, the concept of God is abstraction of abstractions, even as it is the most concrete of concrete concepts. But to get that, you have to have this intellectual development. Until you get to this, God is still some type of male figure sitting on a throne. So this aligns with it. And then there's the Erikson stages, right? Let's move to the next one. It's a social psychological development, how the child comes to know his own identity. And if you look at it, it's around the genital puberty period, age 12 and 13, that when he begins to understand identity versus role confusion. It's at this point when the child says, I am more than just a son or daughter of somebody. I want to be more than just. Don't just call me a son and daughter. That's when he begins to have his own identity. It aligns so well with this, right? And then the next one is Kohlberg's, the theory of moral development. Again, this is all kind of fun, right? Bringing in all your college education, right? Next one, please. Okay, and it's around age 12 or 13, where the person hits conventional, and with conventional, either stage 3 or stage 4, fulfilling duties and upholding laws. If you look at it before that, like stage 1 is punishment. Basically, they don't know what's right and wrong. Dad punishes you, oh, you must be wrong. That's how they know it, right? And getting what you want by trade of stage 2, they learn how to, manipulate the parents, okay, right? Stage 3, meeting the expectation of others. This is when they think of right and wrong as what the other friends say, right? So if the friends affirm with it, if they're okay with it, if I give them a toy, they should give me a toy back. But it's at stage 4 when they see the laws, right, rules, orders of the world, beyond just what the parents say and what their friends say. And again, maybe it's something that's more abstract. It applies to all areas. Okay, so all these things helps the boy, but of course this applies to sisters too, but specifically in our study context, the boy finally understands, I am more than just a son of somebody, and the commandment of God is more than just an extension of my father's words. There's a God out there beyond my family experience. He's not just a family or tribal God. And so you are able to respond. So and at that age, and again, this is fascinating, right? How did the Jewish people know this? I mean, they didn't do all this. They didn't have all this. But they sensed it. At age 12 or 13, and the boy, he can understand what it means when God says, love your God. And because he can understand it, he could obey it. And because he can obey it, he is responsible for it. So here's a simple theological definition of manhood, right? Let's move on. Biblical theological definition of manhood. Next, please. A man is responsible for obeying God's command. Or another way to say it, one who can responsibly obey God's command is a man. Okay, we're going to break this down. Responsibility. So if at the core of manhood is responsibility, it also means that the greatest temptation for men is to be irresponsible. We fear most what we can do, right? We run away from what we're called to do. And so if responsibilities are calling, then that's where our greatest temptation is. We men try to run away from irresponsibility in every way possible. Right? This is the Peter Pan syndrome. This is the Hugh Hefner Playboy syndrome, right? I don't want responsibility. Let me just play with many different ladies, different experiences. And this is, from the biblical perspective, what we call the Adam syndrome. You know what happens with Adam, right? Usually, the way we interpret the fall of humanity, right? In the Bible, it's Adam and Eve. They're supposed to not eat the fruit, but they eat the fruit. And the way we kind of interpret the story is this. Eve was alone. Adam, he had to go out and do work. So he was working hard for the family, and Eve was there alone. And because she was such a weak-willed woman, the serpent came and said, good, perfect timing, and said, did God say? And then, she gets, easily affected, influenced, and so she eats the fruit. And then when Adam comes, and oh my goodness, what did my wife do? It's too late. But Adam, being a hero, saying, I'd rather live with you out there in the wilderness than to have this own perfect paradise life on my own. And so he eats the food. He's like, tragic, romantic hero, right? But it's not it, right? If you look at it very carefully, okay, you don't have to turn, I'll just read it. It says here in Genesis chapter 3, right? 6. When the woman saw that the fruit of the tree was good for food and pleasing to the eye, and also desirable for gaining wisdom, she took some and ate it. She also gave some to her husband who was with her. So he was there all along. Right? It's like, now, if he was responsible, he would have said, stop. If he had even an ounce of responsibility, he would have at least said, no, honey, I'll take the first bite. But he's like, you take the first bite. Oh, she's not dead. Let me try. No responsibility at all. And, okay, you know the story if you're familiar. So the pleasure lasts for a moment, and now they're hiding from each other and from themselves, and now God comes and God says, what happened? That's a way of God saying to Adam, be a man, own up. And then Adam says, the woman. And for all human history, men have blamed the woman. It's always the woman, right? The fall of Rome, the woman, right? The fall of whatever, woman, right? It's always the woman. Even now, like in some cultures, right? If there's some hint of infidelity, the woman is stoned to death. In Africa, just a month ago, right? There was a story in NPR about a sister who sought refuge, or a little girl, a teenager, sought refuge in the U.S. military because her brother threatened to kill her because she had texted with another boy. It's the woman's fault. Now, our culture might not be that harsh, but we still have it. When there's rape, whose fault is it? The woman who was scantily clad. And let's just be honest, and I'll be just honest, shamefully, I mean, even individual, when things go wrong, it's always women, right? My first 5 tumultuous years of marriage, and I own up to it now, and it's shameful, but much of it was because I thought, if I had married another woman, I mean, I blamed her for all these things. If it wasn't for her, if I had a different... Is that how we think? Now, if it's not the wife, then it's the mother. If the mother was not so cloying, if the mother was not so... And if it's not the mother, then it's the father. Look, we men, to throw away our responsibility, we'll go way beyond the female sex. Probably will start there, which is very sad, but it will go beyond. If it's not the mother, then it's the father. If it's not the father, then it's the boss. If it's not the boss, then it's the company. If it's not the company, then it's the dog. If it's not the dog, then it's God. If it's not God, then it's the lazy guardian angel that's supposed to protect me. If it's not them, then it's the devil. If it's not the devil, it's the cat. If it's not the cat, then it's the snake. It's always someone else's fault. Irresponsibility. And the man says, it's my bad. And by saying that, it doesn't mean that he's in control of all the factors. And so not everything, because he's going to control the factors and all the blame falls on me. All he's saying is that, yes, there's so many factors that he cannot control, but there are even small, simple things that I have a stake in this, and I have a say in this, and I didn't do my part. And so all of the consequences falls on me. That's responsibility. It's not beating yourself and blaming yourself for everything. It's honest looking at that. There are many factors to any situation, but you hold the consequences and you put it on yourself because you had a part in that. Right? That's responsibility. And here, Jesus shows this, right? So the parents, they go, they're traveling, they're talking with their friends, they love it, and it's like, it's so quiet. Like, this is so nice, it's so quiet. It's like, we don't have any kids. And they look around, they don't have any kids, they just love Jesus. Right? And they go back, and whose fault is it? I mean, honestly, whose fault is it? The boy, Jesus, was probably there the first time. We are just told they probably went to every year. They're very devout. They know the city, they know the customs. It was the parents' fault. In today's society, Mary and Joseph would be arrested. Right? But when mother finally sees Jesus, what does the mother do? She says, why you made us so worried? It's like she throws the blame on Jesus, which is typical of any parents, right? Like, you drive a fender bender, you turn around, because you're so loud, I get that fender bender. It's your fault, right? That's what parents do. But Jesus could have done the same thing, because what are you talking about? It's my fault. It's your fault. Like, I don't know this city. You gotta, take me with you. Like, I thought you want to disown me or something. But that's not what Jesus says. And his words seem very cold, but it's not. He says, didn't you know that I will be in my Father's house? Now, there's a lot to unpack, and we will be, but it says at least this: I decided to be here. I chose to be here. It wasn't like you abandoned me and I had nowhere else to go. I was here. So that's my part. That's my responsibility. And you see him taking up the responsibility because, again, at the end, it says that he went with his parents and he obeyed. And that obedience is not so much slavish, fearful obedience that, Joseph's going to whip me because no, it was more like, okay, it's my responsibility now. It's my duty to follow them. Responsibility. Right? I'm going to call up a person, and William, can you come up? Yeah. And I get to mentor with him, and this guy, he's a man, definitely, a man of God, and lots of wisdom that I learned from him. And through that, I've learned a story, and he was been very kind to share this story about how he learned responsibility and how he took a responsibility in his life. So there's some recent event that really changed the dynamics of relationship. What stirred it? What caused it?
First of all, I'm not responsible. I like to be irresponsible. But growing up,
okay.
Everybody who knows me knows that I don't talk much, and there's a reason behind it. Growing up, the norm and the value of my surrounding was a man should not talk much. A man should not show emotion. So there's a Korean saying, typically a man cries only 3 times. When they're born, when their parents die, and when the country is no longer. So I learned from that value. And typically, a man should say only 3 words. When I'm home. Where are the kids? Let's sleep. So growing up, I learned from those kind of value. Initially, I think I've been married for 14 years, and we celebrated our anniversary recently. And I had known Judy for 17 years. So initially, I think that's what attracted her me to her, being quiet and not speaking much. But after living 14 years, you get sick and tired of it if the husband is not speaking much, and if the husband doesn't really show that much emotional support. It's difficult to live with that kind of person. So, long story short, if I go into the detail, it's gonna take too long. But we had a big fight about 2 months ago. A big fight. She was accusing me of not being emotionally supportive, and she ran off to another room. I knew that much. No, this is not good. So I better do something. But I'm not a type of person who could just smooth things down with a word. So quickly, it hit my mind. Okay, I told Judy, okay, give me about 24 hours. Let me try to process it, and then we'll talk about it. So I smooth things out that way. And the next day come, and there was nothing. I couldn't really speak much, so I decided to actually start writing down my thought. I'm not good with words, but typically when I write things down, I could communicate more clearly. So I decided to write her a letter, and that resolved the issue. Now, it went very well, actually. It went very, very well. So I decided, okay, if I cannot be emotionally supportive with my word, maybe I could actually write her a letter. I could communicate my thought. by writing a letter. So after that event, I actually decided to write her a letter every single day, and I've been doing that.
So, that's a man, right? Responsibility, takes it up. And so you promise to write her every day, except weekends, right? I mean, you need a break, right?
Except weekend. Yeah, except weekend.
And how has it been?
Oh, it's been good. Yeah, it's been good. And it comes naturally to me. I like to be disciplined. If I decide to do something, no matter what, I'll do it. So, when I'm at work, I have like some time. So that's typically when I spend time, writing.
And I don't know if I shared this with you. I think Judy comes to church because she does VBS. Yeah. And that day when you wrote, I mean, she was beaming. She was so happy. But thank you for sharing. Thank you. Okay. Not an easy thing to be transparent about, but thank you for being transparent and something that we can learn. Okay, but now, ladies, the lesson is not that your husband should write to you every day, okay? And if you try to make your husband do that, then they're going to hate William, all right? Every man has their own way. Okay, manhood is not a singular way of doing it, but it is taking responsibility however you want to express it. Okay? Being responsible. Right? And it starts with being, okay, it's my bad. Right? So, responsibility. Responsible to obey God's command. God's command. Now, that might scare us, right? God's command. It sounds heavy. It sounds like shackles on your ankles and wrist and neck. But it's not. God's command is actually the command that breaks free the shackles on your ankles, wrist, and neck. God's command frees us. You know, authority always cancels other authorities. And so when we come under God's authority, when we finally say, I'm only under you, that means all the other authorities that claim our lives, all of it is nulled, voided. We are free from all those authorities. Case in point, let's say if you are a Korean male citizen, and if you're over 18, if you go to Korea, you got to be careful. Why? Because they could get you and they could draft you into put you into the army. It's a requirement that every Korean male citizen join the army. But if you go there with the U.S. citizenship, they can't touch you. You could walk around all the Korean land, right? They can't touch you because you are under another authority. See, every authority cancels other authorities. And if we come under God's authority, which is the most supreme and which is life-giving, then all the other things in this world, right? All the other authorities that try to claim you, whether it be your friends, whether it be jealousy, competition, whether it be your company, even in your family, right? They're all voided. And that means you are free. God's commandment frees us. Again, we see this here too. We go back to the word. Didn't you know that I will be in my Father's house? Right at that point, you know what Jesus is saying? I am no longer under your authority. Right? Now, we might think like, well, Jesus has the right to say that because, he is literally the Son of God. He is. But actually, it's not. It is part of the Jewish ritual that at the age of 12, the child is no longer under the authority of the parents, but under the authority of God. It's such a great difference that, when you look at sometimes understanding of what happens to the life after judgment. And God will judge, right, what the children do under 12 or whatever age according to, what period in Jewish history. They will hold those sins accountable to the fathers. But once that boy goes 12 or 13, it's no longer accountable to the fathers. The authority is changed. Now, physically, they might be in the same house, but the authority is shifted. And so it's not only that Jesus himself comes under the authority of God and only God is the Father. Every one of us, and maybe it's a good practice. And when we think of 12, our culture kind of prolongs the teenage and the young adults, like young adult at 35, it's still young. No, it's not. Right? But, to recognize that even from the age of 12, that we're under different authority, we're under the authority of God. And do you remember that passage in Matthew when Jesus teaches, and we looked at this in the very beginning of Theology of the Family, Jesus says, don't call anyone in this earth Father, because only God in heaven is your Father. And again, when he says that, he's really not being radical. He's only emphasizing what's already in that ritual, that when a boy becomes a man, his only authority is God. Heavy? No, that's freeing. And so here again, I mean, there's so much here that's happening, but you could see it. So when Jesus now returns to Nazareth with his parents, he's a different person. I mean, even Mother Mary recognizes that. What is this? He doesn't go now as a slavish child, but he goes there as a man who chooses to obey his parents because he obeys God, who says, honor your parents. And that's very different. Even the language itself, the word boy here in Greek is paidis. And naturally that word could be used to refer to a child, but also to a slave. And in that ancient world, as far as legality, the child and the slave were in the same state, meaning they had no legal rights. They were totally the property of the parents. Right? But once that boy is no longer paidis, then he's no longer a slave to the parent. To be under the authority of God is to be no longer a slave to anything in this world. It's freedom. But that freedom can only be embodied and lived and expressed when we obey it. And so responsible to obey God's command. Obedience is important. Only when we obey does that commandment that frees us could become a genuine freedom. In January 1, 1863, President Lincoln did the executive order, right? The Emancipation Proclamation. And in it basically said, all the states that rebelled against the Union, the slaves are now free. Now, depending on how you look at it, it's kind of funny, right? The Confederates saying, you're not our president. We're seceded. So your edict, right? It doesn't no longer applies. But the president was saying, no. Actually, you guys are rebelling, but you guys are still under my authority. I am your president, and he declared all slaves free. Slaves under the Confederate States had a decision to make. Whose authority are we under? And for those slaves who obeyed the president, they were free to walk out of the slave shed and from that field. Obedience. Okay? It is only when we obey that we can experience the freedom that God's command gives us. And we see here again, Jesus obeying, right? And the obedience, it comes in so many different ways. For Jesus, at that age of 12, obedience to God at that age meant obedience to parents. It comes in small, subtle ways. For William, obedience to God meant being more emotionally supportive to his wife by writing. And that was obedience. Maybe when you go in college campus, you face temptation. Somebody says, just do this and it will dull your pain. And it's your friend and you've been with that person for so long. And it's so hard to say no to that person. But then when you say yes to God, then it's easy to say no. And you're in a company and then maybe the boss, maybe someone says, change the numbers just a bit. That's all it is. And it's so hard to say no because you're afraid of repercussions. But when you say yes to God, then it's easy to say no. When you obey, you experience freedom all around. Obedience. And then, of course, we go back to Jesus. How did he save us? How did he obtain new life for us? He first took the responsibility of all the sins of the world. It wasn't his fault. It was us. But he takes it up as if it's his own. He comes under the commandment of God. And under the commandment of God, those who sin are to be punished. And he receives it as if it was his just punishment. And then remember the prayer. In one sense, the whole of humanity hinged upon that evening when Jesus was praying on the Mount of Olives. And the impending death was filled him with fear. He too was man and a human being, and so he suffered. And he sweated and he clawed the earth. He said, take this cup away from me. Take this cup away from me. I don't want to be responsible for this. But as he heard the footsteps of his traitor coming, accompanied by steps of soldiers, he finally said that very important prayer that changed human history. He said, not my will, but yours be done. It was simply an act of obedience. And once he said that, he stood up and he didn't flinch, no matter what they threw against him. Obedience, be a man, means to be responsibly obedient to God's commandment. And here's the final point. And that means actually manhood is a gift too. See, I know the language be a man makes it sound like you have to prove yourself again. But no, it's grace. To be a man and be a man of God is a pure grace, a gift that we receive. Because think about it, obedience is not so much about what I do, it's about receiving and accepting what's been given to me. That's what obedience is. Because if manhood depended upon what the world usually thinks about success, then not everybody will be successful because everybody has different skill sets. Not everyone's good in business. Right? People might have more resources, might be more connected. If manhood depended upon those things, not everybody can become a man. Or becoming athletic, right? Not everyone can play like LeBron James, right? Not every man can play basketball like me, right? I mean, because I'm pretty bad and just, so skills are so drastically different. I mean, if it's dependent upon that, and then the context and the resources is so drastically different. If your man is dependent upon what you obtain, what you got, what title you got, then there'll be so much failures, so much anxiety. But here it is. Manhood depends upon one thing, obedience. And you know what? Every one of us can obey. Every one of us is under God's command, and every one of us can obey. Whether it be at the cross, whether it be in a college campus, whether it be parents, whether it be in our spouse, with their relationships, whether it be with our children, wherever it is, even in shopping and in a counter and just being obedient to God to be more kind, every one of us can be obedient. And so that's a gift. Every one of us will create the image of the glory of God, and all we need to do is accept it by obeying God's freeing commandment. We are men of God. You are man of God. Let's pray. Just a minute. Let's first consider whether we've been irresponsible. Whether we've been throwing these responsibilities upon other people and blaming others. And secondly, let's also consider whether we've been obeying God's commandment. And if we have, let us celebrate that. And if we have not, let us repent.